Hello, I'm Sven, and I'm here to talk about SEO as part of web development. Firstly, I would like to say that I fully realize that I'm way overdressed. And I used to be like you, really. And we'll briefly go into what happened, because this is just, okay. So, I started with web development way back in 2000, when Janne was giving the first presentation. I had some flashbacks, quite a few actually. So what we did was we custom created the CMSs that we used for our clients, which was a pain, to put it mildly. And so I was a typical IT guy. Basically, there was 4 of us in a room, 4 by 3 meters, like a small thing, and we communicated through Messenger, so no talking. My few colleagues, the worst nightmare was if we had to see a client, because actually they would want something to be changed, and they had all these different ideas, and we just wanted to do stuff, not to just kind of redo or think or okay, we thought in terms of code, in terms of actual what do we want to write. So what I did was I leaped into the pool head first, the deep end, and I went to sales, which was really painful for a while. But what it did was that actually a few years later, when I went to a media company to work as a technical specialist, I suddenly realized that communication skills really help. It's not about it's only 50% of a technical solution, and the other at least 50% is actually figuring out what the client really needs. Not what they say they want, but what they actually need. And so back then we were selling, actually, okay, I was one of the people who was selling banner advertising. And when I looked at the websites, I realized that what the clients are doing, they're actually burning money, because the websites themselves were just really bad in, unfortunately, too many cases. So I discovered SEO for me, just to try to figure out how to bypass the paid media, how to actually get visibility through organic search. So yes, this is my kind of and right now, mostly I do strategic development, kind of this big picture stuff. I would really like to do more technical stuff, but as my role changed about a year ago, I became team lead. So right now it's just I really want to do technical stuff, but I do not have the time for it, and this creates this internal kind of struggle, just I'm still really inside this kind of this IT guy like you, but mostly I'm actually communicating with clients and supporting the team. So yes, a few words about the places I work. MBD, Media Brands Digital, it's the largest and by far the most awesome digital media agency in Baltics. We have roughly 450 partners and clients. 55% of our clients are export-oriented, so they sell stuff outside of Estonia. We have more than 90 digital specialists, and this year revenue will be surpassing 15 million. So, first let's talk about the big picture, and then we'll dive also into technical side also. Okay, so some clients with a new website actually need a new website. This is really difficult to communicate to the client, to go to a meeting and say that, okay, you just paid 12,000 euros and you need to start over. And this is why I'm here to minimize the risk of that happening. So how did we get here? Okay, let's get some specific examples. I'm not naming I'm not naming names, but these are quite recent cases where a client actually had a website and they decided that they want a new one, so they did a new website and basically overnight lost 30% of their organic revenue. I'm not talking about traffic, I'm actually talking money. So for a client that was doing more than 100,000 euros from organic traffic monthly, they just raised 30,000 from that. So occasionally it's just, yeah. So recovery from that loss is costly, and also it can take a lot of time. So what we need to do is we need to communicate to the clients that technical SEO is actually, in the end it's cheaper while it's done in parallel with generating a new website. It all begins with a brief. When we are creating a brief, it's important to, if their client already has some in-house competencies in SEO, it makes sense to get that person involved and make sure that actually when the existing website is done correctly, to make sure that all this correct stuff gets kept also in the new website version. Basically, if there is something that needs to be improved, it needs to be written out, because developers actually follow the instructions, and the instructions, if the instructions are not there, it's not developers' fault that the basically site fails. And when it's just a question of visual facelift, make sure that all this stuff that actually works, it stays there. You can upgrade the visuals, but please make sure that the important stuff also is top-notch on the first on the new website. So what we can do when there is no in-house SEO competency, then the only logical thing to do is to involve a third-party digital agency with proper know-how that can actually guide you and help you to write the brief. So I'd just to get a sense of like how many people here are actually not strictly only coders, but also kind of like project managers or kind of like communicating with the clients. Okay, so quite a few of them. Okay, it's really then it's yes, the right audience. SEO for quite a while now, it's not a separate discipline anymore. It used to be that there was this list of SEO things that you did. For example, like way back when there were meta keywords. So you just added the keywords and did some small tweaks and everything worked, and it was just, you did the SEO. But now Google more and more tries to look at the websites through the eyes of the user. They have an AI component. It's called, like, it has many names, but basically what it does is it's in real-time learning and trying to figure out what are the things that when people are searching how to, like, Google is trying to trying to figure out what is the user intent when they do the searches. So in quite a few cases, actually, even the Google engineers cannot say what are the SEO things that we need to do because it's a black box. It's in constant change. So, but fortunately, there are some basic things that if we kind of do them, most of these headaches are eliminated. And actually what we do is we create better user experience. Basically, forget about Google. Offer the best user experience and everything else takes care of itself. Of course, there are some other things like link building and content generation that you need to do also, but if you concentrate on creating good user experience, 99% of your job is already done in a very, very good direction. Technical SEO is an investment because it will cost more to do the things to kind of pay attention to all those small details to get the SEO right from technical perspective. So clients might tell you that, okay, we want to create a new website, and your offer is 25,000 euros, but the competitor is saying that they can do it with 10,000 euros. Like, what's going on? So the thing is that in very likely scenario, the cheaper one, they will just create the website, and happens the thing that was on one of the first slides. It's just a lot of stuff. Like it's gut-wrenching and heartbreaking to see. Like quite recently, I had a really big e-commerce store, and they did a facelift. Like basically, they just wanted the site to look nicer, and everything that you could do wrong from SEO perspective, they did wrong. So it was just like, oh my God, what did you just do? Fortunately, they are very reactive. I'd say 3/3 of the stuff they fixed within 2 weeks after we gave the kind of like, okay, you need to fix these and these and these things. But the bad news is that actually getting back the lost traffic, like that's this process is slow. So yeah. Also, because when we are creating good user experience, then we're just not influencing just the organic part of digital marketing, but actually all digital stuff that we do is way more efficient and makes a lot more money for the clients. So it's easier to set up analytics, GTM, like Google Tag Manager, tracking stuff. It's basically better for Google Ads campaigns because you pay less for pages that Google sees that are more relevant to the users, and so on and so forth. So there are kind of like windfall effects when you do a website with a good usability. It will pay off, even if the initial cost is higher than maybe you would initially like. So, and now let's get to the technical stuff. So, I'm convinced that vast majority of this stuff is familiar to you, but still I want to bring this stuff to the attention because it is important. First, URL structure. Subdomains versus folders. So when we have a shop, do we put it on shop.domain.com or domain.com/shop? Google treats subdomains as separate domains. So in strict terms, like all of the rank choose is not directed to the domain. So when we want to improve the rankings for the stuff we have in the shop, we can't use, for example, domain blog for content generation and getting more links and stuff because it's on a different domain. So there are technical reasons, totally valid reasons why when, like, occasionally it makes sense to put it on a subdomain, but it has to be a conscious choice. Like, for some technical reasons, it does make sense, and so I'm not saying that never ever do it, but it's just when you do it, it needs to be a conscious choice, and you need to have valid reasons why you're not putting it on a main domain, but on a subdomain. Also, URLs add necessary context. So keep category and subcategory names in the URLs. For example, here, like these are basically random examples that I gathered. These are not my clients or anything. I try to be as objective or kind of like impartial as possible. So, for example, but Euronics has a really, really good site. So this is a good example. So euronics.de/home appliances/ like ovens and cooking tops / microwave ovens. So when you just use, for example, mikrolaineahjud, you lose all the, like the microwave ovens, you lose the context. For example, or when you have a blog or a news section, it's quite common to see that there is a section and a category called news, uudised. But when you start reading the article, it becomes the domain / the name of the article. So don't do that. Keep the news or the blog or whatever, keep it in the URL because it gives context. And also, importantly, it really, really helps with analytical stuff. and tagging and stuff. So yes. Also, language. Whenever possible, again, don't put it as a subdomain, but use it as a category. So euronics.e/en/audio, portable speakers, small speakers. Meta titles. So this is one of the, I think, one of the few things that all through ages basically has been one of these kind of like SEO like must-dos. Where we can see them, it's basically, it's not just for the Google, it's also for users. For example, in Google search results, it's the thing that customer sees, and meta title content is used to for Google to figure out, okay, what is this page about? So I have seen customer pages that actually, for example, like the worst thing ever is to have a website, for example, that manufactures, I don't know, like ventilation or something. And the meta title for that home page is homepage. Like it's sad, but it's so common still after all these years. So when you don't say what you do, of course you're not going to rank in Google organic search. So very important, make them unique. Regarding the length of the meta titles, it's like 55 to 60 characters, but in reality the length is measured in pixels, so it's 600 pixels. So for example, when you have words that contain a lot of lowercase l's and i's and those narrow characters, you can have way more characters when you have words which have like w's and m's and kind of like wide characters in it. So it's really tricky to give a character count because it's measured in pixels. But there are online tools, so you can check if it fits or not. Again, for homepage and most important category pages, it's really important to write them, or at least check them manually. But for large e-commerce solutions, it's impossible. It doesn't make any sense to do it by hand. So what we can do is generate like a rule-based logic that use this and this and this, and so these would be generated automatically. Otherwise, it's just going to be a big mess. And also, meta titles are what you see when you bookmark a page. So again, really, it was actually quite a while ago, but I remember I was searching something from e-commerce store, and there were quite a few options, and I bookmarked them. There were like 7 or 8 of those, and just to get back to them later. And when I went back later, all the meta titles were exactly the same. So all the bookmark names were exactly the same, and I was like, what? I want to go, like, if I want to see the specific product and all the bookmarks are labeled exactly the same, okay, it doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. So there are very, very, very good reasons to make sure the meta titles are done properly. The same with meta descriptions. The top one is a good example. Bottom two ones are bad examples. And for obvious reasons, because when the meta description is missing from the code, Google actually what it does, it takes a snippet from a page and uses it as a meta description. So for example, yes, for example, the last one, Hawaii Express example, it's just random selection of prices, something about lease, and it's bits and pieces taken from a page. It doesn't make any sense. When we talk about meta descriptions are something that actually Google does not look at directly. When we looked at meta titles, it was something that Google evaluated. Okay, does this thing talk, like, is this subject the thing that we want to see? But with meta descriptions, it's meant for users. What meta descriptions are it's basically a sales copy on a Google search result page to let the person know, okay, is that something that interests me? Do I want to click and read more about it? So, and the click-through rate is actually something that Google does look at. So it doesn't make sense, for example, to do like keyword stuffing or make sure that like all the proper terms that were mentioned in the meta title are also included in the meta description. Like, it doesn't work like that. So but it does make sense to write as good meta description as possible, because indirectly it's still important through the click-through rate. When there's higher click-through rate, then it's a positive signal for Google. So we need to entice people to click on our search result. Again, for homepage and most important categories, it's important to kind of like go over them and write them manually. And for large e-commerce products and like category pages, create rules that basically generate the proper meta descriptions. Headings. H1 heading is something that is on the page. It's a semantic kind of signal. What it does is it says to Google, okay, this bit of text is the title. This is that this page is about. So it makes sense to use the H1 to mark the title. When you have subheadings throughout the text, you can have them between as many H2 or H3 tags as you need. But there can be only, like, H1s are reserved actually for the title. Also, it's good if you follow the strict hierarchy. So first H1, then H2, or like H3 if necessary. But you cannot do like H1, H3, H2, or like you can't have, for example, H2 on a page before you have a H1. So this is something that Google looks at in the code. Search engines use headings and subheadings again to get a better sense of context. Okay, what is this page about? What are the texts about? And headings and subheadings are like kind of like short summaries, or these bits of text are more important than basically the rest of the text. Anecdotal example from a while ago, but I have seen 11 sets of H1 tags on a page. And when I asked the client's developer, like, okay, what did you do there? Or like, and then they said that it just had the right size and the right, it looked the right way, so we put it like between H1 tags. Like, but CSS, anyone? Like, so yes, it's not about formatting, it's the semantic meaning. Page loading speed. So it's really important that the pages load fast, because there have been numerous studies, and the slower the page is, the lower is the conversion rate of the page. So for example, for a site that loads in 1 second, it has 2.5 times higher conversion rate than a site that loads in 5 seconds. So, but there is no magic number for perfect page loading speed. It all depends on a context. It all depends, okay, what niche are you in? How fast are your competitors' sites loading? So there is no like universal truth about speed. The only truth is make it as fast as possible. Also, in many cases, it's not actually the speed, but it's the perception of the speed for users. So even if it doesn't, like from a hard data point, it's not really that fast, but user experience is still good, then you can get away with lower page speed. It's all about user experience. Ways to improve loading speed. First one, it's really important to choose a framework or template or whatever that has minimal amount of like excess CSS and JavaScript. Basically, JavaScript and CSS that is not used. It's there, it's just bloated code, and there are frameworks that are better than others. So first step, try to find one that has the minimal amount of unnecessary CSS and JavaScript. Culprit number 2, usually, pictures. Picture files are, sometimes it's crazy. I've seen websites that use pictures that are actually taken from SLR camera. Basically 20 megabit pictures that are put straight up without optimizing or reducing the pixel size or whatever. And it's rare, but it still occasionally happens. So what we can do, actually we'll go into pictures a bit later. So next thing is to use caching, also site compression, and minify JavaScript and CSS. So these are usually, like if you take care of this, most of your problems are usually addressed. So let's go a bit deeper into images. Use images that are optimized for websites. There are, okay, so basically, and also use next generation formats. So instead of JPEGs or PNGs, use the new WebP format whenever possible. You get the smaller file size for exactly the same picture quality. When possible, use automated file name generation. So to rank with also pictures, like in Google Picture Search, it makes sense to include descriptive file names, that the names of the pictures that are on the page also matter. So it doesn't make sense to use pictures with the names of just a random string of characters. It pays to actually to describe what's on the picture, and when it's relevant, also use the terms that you want to rank with. And so again, on a big scale, it's impossible and not recommended to do it manually. Like, it's unthinkable to do it manually, actually. So find a way to automate the process of getting good file names. Also, alt parameter. This is the kind of like when there are problems with loading images, the name of the, like basically the content of the alt parameter is used instead. And also this is something that gives additional context to Google that, okay, this is the picture. And make sure that the pixel sizes of pictures are appropriate. So, for example, when you have like image in a header somewhere or something that you know it's just, I don't know, like 65 times 200 pixels or something like this, make sure that the picture is not bigger than 65 times 200 pixels, because you won't need a bigger version of that picture. It doesn't make sense to use 2000 times I don't know how many pixels for that picture. Canonical tags. How many of you have like previous knowledge about the concept of canonicalization? Okay, some of you. Okay, so again, story that actually happened. I use a tool called Screaming Frog to crawl through the website and check, okay, what's good, what's bad, how does it, how it's built, what's used, and so on and so forth. So I had a website. They had like few thousand products in their catalog, and I ran Screaming Frog. And 250,000 pages later, it said that it had crawled about a third of the pages. Again, 250,000 pages had been crawled. And in the end, actually, our IP got blacklisted because what I unknowingly or unintentionally did was, it was basically a denial of service attack, because Screaming Frog was just crawling and crawling and crawling and crawling. There were no canonical tags. So, so what are the canonical tags? Canonical tags tell Google that, okay, there's one page that should be ranked, and all the other versions, for example, how do you get different versions? For example, when you use filters, you have parameters that are added to the URL. When Google crawls and sees that there are parameters added, it treats it as a new page. So if we don't tell Google that actually this is the same page, it's just some version of it, then we create a situation when pages from our own website compete with each other for the rankings. Again, this is completely unnecessary. And also important, when we have canonical tags, we use the Google crawl budget much more efficiently, because Google's efforts are not wasted on basically on non-existent pages. We just crawl something that we want to crawl. So, and also there is this last line. Basically, it's as simple as that. You have this line of code added to every single page of the site, and that fixes the problem. Content. The same website that had the home page in their meta title also did not mention with a single sentence what they do on their home page. They had all kinds of nice pictures and stuff, but not a sentence about what they actually do. So it's important to make sure that we actually tell people what our company, what service or product our company is providing. Do not copy-paste text from other websites, because Google continuously crawls through the web, and it has a memory of, okay, I've seen that text somewhere else before, so now it's here. Is it new? Is it adding like value? Not really, because I've seen it already over there. So to avoid that, do not copy-paste text. What you can do, for example, for e-commerce solutions that have standard, for example, iPhone is an iPhone. If I'm selling iPhones, I get product specifications from a manufacturer, and they're the same. So what we can do is add user reviews to the page that create an additional unique content. We can, for our most important products that we know are going to be bestsellers, it makes sense to add something to that text. Some experience story, something that would differentiate us from all the others that just use the text that comes from the manufacturer. Also, regarding content for e-commerce solutions, after the heading, please make sure that there is a amount of space or a place for a small category description. So even if they're not implemented immediately, it makes perfect sense to build it into the system. So when actually we have something to put there, we don't need to, like, it's already there. We just need to kind of like activate it. Yes, for product categories, it gives, again, this additional context and additional signals for Google. Okay, this is the category. these are the reasons why you should buy it from here. So it's not just, again, it's not just about Google. It's also about getting connection with the users to help them decide, okay, this is something that I need, this is something that I want, okay, I want to buy it from here. This is kind of so and so because of UX considerations, but whenever possible, if you have text that is even remotely important, do not hide it with CSS and JavaScript. When there's a lot of it, a lot of text, then show at least part of it and add a button like read more or something that would open the rest of the text. But at least some of it should be immediately visible. Because again, Google looks the page through the user's view, and if the text is not visible, it's not visible for humans, and it's not also visible for Google. It's there in the code, but when the Google is looking it as a user, it says that, okay, the text is there, but it's not visible. So it's weighed with a lesser importance than it could be. And questions? Yes.
Looking at the things that all of the user intent and how the real performance of user on site affects the use, don't you think that MBD could take into your services portfolio also accessibility consulting? Because this is also kind of something that on e-commerce side and other sides is, if not requirement, then soon will be on, let's say, directive level requirements. So do you look at that side also?
Yes, but not really, not consciously. Because, like, for me, it's maybe clarify a little bit when you say accessibility, what exactly do you mean? Because for me,
that the same site is usable for people with different disabilities.
Okay.
They can be anything cognitive and so on, yeah. Visual, but actually what I found that if I make the site more accessible, it actually does fill a large number of SEO requirements also. So, and my personal interest is kind of like to get more sites to be accessible, and I'm kind of seeing that, these guys are doing good job. Maybe they could kind of like help the society forward by selling a good service to their client, which is slightly outside of marketing, but the benefits is there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Again, and like right now, the answer is no, we are not looking at it kind of like consciously, but it depends, because for some clients, we actually do look at it. We don't offer it as a service, but for some companies that actually, like, we look at who is the target for that website, like the target group. And when there are people with, for example, if there are sites with kind of like government or local authority or something like related, it makes perfect sense to also look at that. Or like
people also buying home appliances.
Well, yeah. But again, this is something that we need to communicate to clients, that they would see the benefits. Because in the end, it all comes down to, okay, what do I get from it? Like, it so often all boils down to, like, money. But yes, that's a very good observation, and yes, it makes sense to go deeper into accessibility also, yeah.
So I think we are a couple of minutes over, so let's say thanks to Sven. And now we have a lunch break for 1 hour, so it will be held downstairs.